another session with me. Hopefully, this session will not be as long as for the quiz, because the quiz session was okay. Started recording. The quiz session was a bit. It will be long because there's a lot of questions that we went through, and then we had to set up the quiz and the gradebook and so on. But this session, I don't think it will be that long, or I hope it will not be that long. So it will last roughly about 1 hour, where I will cover the assignment and analytics and some miscellaneous topics in eLearn based on questions I get in during the session. So I hope everybody can hear me and also can see me clearly. Yes? Okay. So I'm assuming that if it's okay, then if it's not okay, please shout out and mention in the chat and inform CDE to tell me about it, because we're not entirely aware of everything that goes on. So I'm going to proceed with the presentation and move along until people say if there's anything wrong. So without any further ado, I'm going to share my screen. All right, can you see my screen? You should see my PowerPoint presentation.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for the feedback. Now this is this presentation, or this training is miscellaneous of topics. It consists of topics that are here and there, and based on requests that's made by previous participants in my quiz training. So that's why they have two separate topics that we're going to go through. One is the marking guide and rubric in the assignment in eLearn, and also another separate topic on the analytics part of eLearn at USM. So these are two separate topics and might not be directly related to one another. And my name is Yusri Yusup. I'm from School of Industrial Technology, and I hope again that this workshop will just be for 1 hour, because I don't think it will take that long to go through this, but really depends on the questions I get. It should last until 3:30 or maybe 3:45 at the most. Okay, so we begin with some disclaimer here, some announcements regarding the assignment that I'm going to go through and to demo it here now. This assignment might be some overlap between what I'll be teaching, what I'll be training you on, and the ones given by Dr. ID in the last 2 weeks. So you might see some things that are similar with what he does, because I'm going to go through the same process. So, but I think he goes into a bit more detail on all the features of assignment, while I might skip a few things. And if you want to know more about assignments, then you can actually watch this video on the CDAE YouTube channel. Yeah, I think you can just search for it using this keyword. Somebody wants to request control. Can I deny it? I think I'll just deny right. The assignment, the title of the YouTube video is Creating and Grading Assignments in eLearn at USM on the CDAE YouTube channel. So that has other information on assignments that I might leave out in my own presentation. Okay, so we move on to the next slide. So we start off any training or any any workshop or any training activities with the learning outcomes, what you expected to know by the end of the training. So I hope by the end of this training, you'll be able to, this is a bit out of, this is a small topic, but I think it's important I start off with this one before I go into the assignment. I think some of you was also requesting on how to create groups in eLearn. So I'm going to create student groups in eLearn very quickly. And then I'll try to tie this group, the groups with the assignment later when I finish creating the assignment. And after the second learning outcome is that you'll be able to create marking guide or rubric. So I did mention just rubric, but I think maybe I can also talk a bit about marking guide and explain to you the difference between marking guide and rubric in the assignment. And a separate topic will be on how to use analytics. See if there's any messages. Oh, okay. Presentation mode. I can, but then I need to, let me close this. Yeah. But okay, I'm going to put in presentation mode, but the thing is I'm going to switch screens. So I'll be like putting in presentation mode and going out of the presentation mode and going in and so on. So it might be a bit jarring. So that's why I didn't want to use the presentation mode, but where I can, I try to use the presentation mode. So anyway, a separate topic is on the monitor student progress using analytics. That is separate, but that's part of the scope that I will be talking about in this training. So end of this training, I hope you'll be able to create those student groups, you'll be able to create marking guides or rubric in the assignment, and also monitor student progress using analytics. Is everything clear so far? Hello? Is everything clear? Yes? Let me take a look. Okay, thank you very much. I got a lot of messages through here.
Clear, Dr. Yusri.
Okay, thank you. All right. So now the overview. Oh, I need to turn off the. Sorry, I'm getting a lot of Simon. Sorry, I don't know. I'm gonna put this far away. Okay, so we're gonna cover the overview of the training is on the prerequisite settings that you need to set in your eLearn class. It's only one setting, and I think it's important for you to set it. And then you'll learn to know why it's important later when we create the assignment. And then we're going to go through grouping, and then the marking guide or rubric and assignment, and finally the analytics part. That's the overview of today's training. And I'm going to use the same hypothetical cost. When I say hypothetical, means that it's not a made-up cost, but it's not a cost that it's going on right now. I use this cost because it's not being used, so I can delete the contents inside, and the students there are not being graded this semester. So we can use this as the test bed for the training. And in this hypothetical cost, it is an example cost. I use the cost of percentage distribution of 40% assignment and 60% test. But let me clarify that you don't have to use this distribution of marks. This is just a hypothetical cost. It's just an example, just to get the discussion going on. So the one that we will set the assignment for, or the assessment, is for the assignment this time around. The last time I did it for the test component. So now, the first thing, how do we create student groups quickly in eLearn? So let me open up eLearn. Let me just log out first so that I can simulate how you would go into eLearn and create the groups, starting from the beginning. Okay, so you go to elearning.usm.my and then you log in like normal. And you are on the main page and you see all your courses here. And I'm using that empty course, this IEA 501. I go into that course. And then we need to set the prerequisite setting for the course first, the one that I mentioned. So you should go here to the gear button and then click on edit settings. This is the general settings for the course and not for any particular item inside the course. So we click this edit settings button or link. And the one important prerequisite setting that you need to set early on is this part here. There are a few other things here, but I just want to focus on one that's related to the assignment. Now, if you do not change this, it would be set by default at 9.8 gigabytes. That means the site or e-learning will accept up to 9.8 gigabytes worth of files in a single upload. So I think this is not advisable then, because you could actually flood the system. So it's by default. So I suggest that you actually decrease the size to something that's maybe a bit more manageable, but realistic, about maybe 100 to 250 megabytes of size that the students can upload. Actually, this is a bit of a security risk, because if you put at 9.8 gigabytes, so anybody could actually just upload large files into the server and flood the server. So this is one thing that I greatly recommend you to do, to change for each course, because every time you create an assignment later on, you notice that the default upload size would be up to 9.8 gigabytes. So since we set this maximum upload size to 250 megabytes, at least it will go at the maximum of 250. It doesn't go up more than that. And I'm afraid that you might forget to set this if you just use all the defaults. So that's why I recommend this. So we click save and display to save this settings. Anyway, if you have any questions, then you can just unmute your mic and then ask the questions directly. Okay, so with that said, let's create groups. So to create groups, you should click on these three horizontal lines, and then you go to participants. This link here. Go into that page, and then you see your students, all of the students. There's about, in this, I'm not sure, I think it should be about 20, 30 plus students. And to create the groups, you go to the gear button again at the side and click on groups. And you're presented with the screen. So there are no groups right now. So we want to create those groups. The one, you could actually create the group manually. When you scroll down from the top to the bottom here, you can create the groups manually by choosing this. But I guess most of you would like to create the groups quickly and randomly. So you can just use this auto create groups button or this function. And these are the settings for the auto create groups. Here it says group alpha, the symbol alias. That means it could be group. The groups will be named alphabetically. Means like it starts with group A, B, C, D. Or if you want it to be like in numbers instead of alphabets, then you can just replace that with a hash. So if you put group hash, means that it will create the groups 1, 2, 3, 4. If you put it as alias, then it will be group A, B, C, D. Okay. You can auto create based on the number of groups. Means that if you already know how many groups that you want to create, or you could also say create the groups based on how many you want in a group. So if you already set your mind to only have 5 groups, so you can just use number of groups and put 5 here. All right. And we scroll down. You select members with role. So it could be actually lecturers are also part of the list of part of participants, but obviously I think most of the time you want to just create groups for your students. So this is set by default on students, so you can just leave it like that. And allocate members, you just create randomly. You can actually have all these other things, but I think most of the time you want to create the groups randomly. And then there are other options here: prevent last small groups or ignore users in groups. So this one I would just I just leave it at the default. And then you click on submit, or you can preview them if you want to, but usually I would just click submit to get the groups straight away, right? So now the groups have already been created. You have in group A this list of students, because we said we want only 5 groups. So it distributes the students evenly throughout the groups. So we have 2 groups that has 8 students, while 3 groups with 7 students in them. So that's it. You've already created your groups. Now, one tip from me about groups when you use e-learning is that it's preferable if you use just one set of groups. You don't create multiple groups, although you can actually create many groups here. You can create like group A, B, C, D, and then another one is group 10 groups with less number of students inside those groups. But it will be a bit messy later when you are trying to restrict the access of certain resource or assignments based on groups, because you have 2 different groups of sets of groups, and eLearn doesn't know which one you're referring to. So that's why if you want to start off with a group in the beginning of the semester, I suggest you just use this set of groups until the end of the semester. Or if you really want to have separate groups, then you should remove this group, delete these groups and create another group for the new assignment that you want it to be group based. So that's just a recommendation. So I recommend that you just use one set of groups from the beginning until the end. All right, so that's one section. Are there any questions about grouping? I'll give about 5 seconds for anybody who wants to ask any questions. Sorry, let me take a look. The students cannot create their own groups because that feature is only reserved for the lecturers, so they don't have that option. If they want to choose their own group right now, I can only see that they will give you the list of, there's actually one here, import groups here. I've never used this before because usually I would just create my own groups, and if the students want to create their own groups, they would give me the list of people they want in the group, and I would just create the groups manually. Usually it's manageable for me, but you can actually import groups here, but I've never tried this before. So let's see. If I click on this, you can choose the file and put in, but I think the format for the files that you put in here would be very specific. You need to be very specifically arranged before you can actually put it here. And when things that you need to be in a certain format before you put it, it tends to be a bit buggy. So in the end, I just choose to create the groups manually instead of importing the groups. But if your number of students is like 500, 600, then maybe it's worthwhile to just create the files to be in that particular format. But I haven't tried this one before, so I can't really advise you on that. So another question says here, when groups are preset, like students choose their own groups, we can still create groups, but don't allocate. We have to allocate the numbers manually after. Yeah, You can actually, let's say you have group A here and you want to, like say Azizatul requested not to be in this group, so you could just click on that student there and you just choose add remove user, and then it'll be removed from the group. So here, right, you click on this Azizatul and you remove that student from the group. So this is manual, and then you replace it with somebody else to be added to the group. That's one way for you to fine-tune the groups if there are requests from the members of the group to change groups because of their reasons. And what if students choose the group? How to create a group that involves only numbers of particular students, not all participants, how to select that participants only. Right now, you could create groups and then create groups from that group, but I've never tried that myself. Usually I would just create these lists of groups automatically. If you look at auto create groups here too, you can see, wait, let us reload this. I think I need to type it down, group of number of groups. You can also choose members per group. Like say you want only like 4 members per group. And the only way that different roles or different groups of people inside the, like say you want to choose from different roles inside eLearn, then these are only the ones that you can choose, either lecturer, student, or editing set. So it's very limiting here. So I don't think you'll be able to do it. As far as I know, you're not able to do that if from a certain group of, you want to create groups within that groups. So maybe you should just create those small groups. You go to the lowest number of members in the group and you just create that many groups to using this way. All right. Okay, so any more questions? You can also voice them out. Just unmute your mic and ask. I'll give about 5 seconds. All right, so I don't think there are any questions anymore about grouping. So that's about groups. So notice that we already created the groups and we'll be using this for the assignment later. So I'm going to go back to the main screen. And I've already created the assignment here. I do this because I want to show you with the end in mind. So I'm going to show you what the student sees. So I'm going to switch my role to a student. Don't worry, if suddenly you want to see how it's being done, I will show you how to do it. But right now, I just want to show you what it looks like at the end. So this is what the student sees. So this is the assignment. You have a description. I greatly recommend you to write up a detailed description of the assignment so they don't come into the assignment blind. And then this is just best practices on creating assignment. This is my opinion on how it should, what are the things that you need to give the students before they can start working on the assignment. Usually what I do is I will give them a template. I'm going to download this and show you what I mean. I will give them a template to start working on the a place for them to work on their term paper or their assignment. So it's quite simple. It's just the things that I want them to write inside their term paper. For example, title, name, abstract, and so on. So at least they have this file to work with to start off with to write their term paper. So I would usually provide them a template, and I also would give them a sample or a model assignment, like what I feel, what I'm looking for, what are the answers that I'm looking for from the students. Because sometimes when the students come into the assignment, they don't really know what the lecturers expect. So I like to give them some, I know what I want from the students, so I give them, show them what I want, but that's not the one they should submit, but show them at least these are the level, what I think is an A paper and what they should strive for before they do the assignment. So I would have a model assignment or that model term paper for them to look at and say that this is what they should strive for. So I'm going to download that and show you what I mean. So I created this one to show. This is the format that I expect from them. This is the title, then there's the abstract, and if we apply the rubric onto this model assignment, then the students should get the full score. So this is what I want to emphasize on. It's like we have to tell the students what we want from them so that it's guided. The things that they do will be guided, and they're not left guessing on what we actually want from them. So we have this introduction, the method, and so on. So till the end. All right, so that's the model. And then below here, this is what the student sees again, what they submit, or whether it has been marked or not, when is the due date, how much time they have, and the rubric. So this is the center of discussion for this training, is how do we create this rubric here. Now, the assignment here, if you notice, we start off with giving them what we expect from them, and the quality of what we expect from them, and also the criteria that we will be grading them against. So this criteria, integration of knowledge, topic focus, depth of discussion, cohesiveness, are all the things that we want in the term paper. And we also show them the points, but showing them the points and so on are actually optional. So if you don't want to show them the points, then you can actually remove this. But for this one, I just showed them the points, so they know like which part has the highest weightage to the term paper or to the assignment. So when the students come in, they see the description of the term paper, and then they see the template there. At least they can start off. They don't left with like too wide of an assignment to do, so they don't know where to start. So at least we give them a template to begin the assignment, and then also tell them what we want them to achieve for the assignment. Okay, so we want to recreate this. Any questions about this? Any questions so far? So far, so good?
Yeah, it's quite clear.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, I'll go back to the main page and let's create that assignment. So just now I changed my role to student, so before I can make any edits on my e-learning portal, so I would have to go back to my normal role. So I click on my name. You can also see that if there's a student there, means that you are still in the student role. So you can simulate what the student sees by being in the student role, using the student role. So you go back to return to my normal role, click on that. And then this is without editing on, even though I'm in my normal role. So to turn on editing, I click on the gear button and click on turn editing on. Then you have all these other options to add in. So here we want to add an activity, the assignment. And then we just fill up this information. So I have this information. I think I'll just type it down. I'm going to create the assignment as if this is a real assignment. So it might take a bit of time putting all the details in there. So I hope you can bear with me. So this is I-8501 term paper assignment. Now, one tip I want to tell you is anything that involves dates, for example, assignments, quizzes, things that would be in the calendar, I recommend you to add in the course code in the beginning of the activity, because there is an e-learning calendar. I'm not sure whether you're aware of that. And then I've already taught some of the students on how to subscribe to the e-learning calendar. So if they are enrolled in a certain course, whatever that you add in activity to that e-learning calendar will pop up in their calendar. So if there's a lot of quizzes and then the names of the quizzes are just quiz or test, something generic, so they don't know the test belongs to which course, or the quiz belongs to which course, or the assignment belongs to which course, because they can actually see the due dates of the assignments, the quizzes, and so on through their calendars. So try to be descriptive for the things that involve dates in your assignments or tests, so they know which one is it for. Now the description here, I'm just going to copy and paste. I'm getting it from my my PowerPoint. So I have this here. Okay, I'll just copy this. And the due date for the term paper is this one. I'll take note of that. Paste it here. And then I put in my template and also my model paper. Click on the add button here. Okay, I'm gonna do that again. So you can actually drag the file here, or you can also, if you don't see the file or you cannot drag it, then you can just click on this button here to add the file. So don't be confused with this one. You just use this upload a file and then click on this choose file button. And luckily it went to the folder that I want, so, or else you have to navigate accordingly. So here I want to give them the model paper. Oops, sorry, what happened? I'm gonna choose the model paper. and then click choose and upload the file. Might take a bit of time. All right, and then another one, the template. Choose and then upload the file too. So we have these two files there. Make the changes. So the assignment is going to be open from today at 12 a.m. It's already open, and the deadline is 30th May. Just like Dr. ID recommend, we don't put 12 like 00 because this one is a source of a lot of confusion from the students, because sometimes they misunderstand that if it's 00, then it could be, if you put it like 30th May 00, 12 o'clock at night, is it like 00 the after 30th May or 12 o'clock at night before 30th May? So just to avoid that confusion, we just put another time other than 00. So here I put 11:55 on the 30th of May. And usually I would just disable this remind me to grade by. And for this one, I expect them to upload a file, a PDF file or a Word document file. So I'll just leave this by default. And then the maximum number of files is just one. We don't want it to be like many files, or else you'd be confused on on the different files that they upload. So you just set it as one to avoid the confusion. Okay, this is what I mentioned about when you set the prerequisite setting. If you do not set it at 250 megabytes, you leave it at default 9.8 gigabytes in the beginning, then it's going to be this is by default set at 9.8 gigabytes. So just to reduce the risk of keeping it at the maximum, so I changed the settings for the entire course, and then here the default is at 250. I think 250, even though it might seem a bit large, but I think it's a reasonable high level reasonable value to choose, because some PDFs might have many photos or high resolution photos that can go up to hundreds of megabytes. So we should give some allowance to the students to provide those photos if they have those photos. So 250 I think is okay. Accepted files, you can actually choose your files. I also recommend you to add in the type of files that you need to specify the files, because in the end they might be uploading Excel file, they might be uploading PowerPoint files, while you expect a docx or a PDF file. So I can tell you right now, if you actually choose here, it gets a bit complicated because you have all these different files that you can choose from, and it gets a bit overwhelming on the type of file that you should tick. So most of the time, I think if you're interested, if you just want PDF and docx, so the formula is just .pdf for PDF files only, and space .docx. So these are the two files that you accept: .pdf and the symbol period .docx, and just leave it like that. You don't have to click on choose. So the next one is feedback types. This one you can just leave use the default. And submission settings, I always like to turn this on. I want them to be aware that they are submitting their assignment. I don't want them to just upload and then hope that it has been submitted. I want them to be aware of it, and they commit to that submission. And I want them to accept the submission statement. And if you just want them, once they click on submit, they cannot resubmit. So if you put never here, means they cannot resubmit the file. But actually, you can grant extension or revert the file to draft later in the gradebook, or when you are grading their assignment. So you can actually change it back if they want to re-upload another version. But here you can just leave it as default. Now we have group submission settings. So you can click this students submit in groups. So you click on yes. Now, if there are other options here that comes up, if you want to them submit by groups, so you can require the group to make submissions. Actually, let me just refer here. It says if enable users who are not accept one submission from a group member. So we can just leave it as a default there. I think here, if enabled, users who are not members of a group will be unable to make submissions if enabled. Yes, so we want this to be on. And here you don't want it to be yes, because you can ask one submission is enough for the entire group. Grouping for students here, let me just check. Oh yeah, we already created the groups. So that's one of the reasons why I recommend you to only use one set of group, because once you create assignments that's based on groups, so you would use the default groups that you've created in the beginning for the students. So you don't have to specify saying which group sets are you going to use. You will just use that 6 or that 5 groups that we created. So I noticed a few messages coming in. Oh, okay, sorry. So there's a few messages here. What if students want to submit a video? Oh, okay, yeah, you can actually submit a video. This is one of the questions in the chat. You can click on choose here, and then you see there's archive files, audio files, document files. I think there's a video file here. There, video file. So there's many formats for the video. There's the 3GP, AVI, DIF. The more common ones are like the MPEG and the MOV and the MP4. So yeah, you can just click on this to allow them to submit only video files, so they cannot submit any other files. All right, let's see. So there's one problem by Lim L about joining the meeting, so maybe admin can assist with that. Now another question says here, how do we know which one will be submitted, one of the group members? So actually it doesn't have to be a certain member, it could be any member in the group. Once they submit the group, once they submit a PDF document or the document that you want, then the group has been cleared as submitted. So it doesn't have to be any particular one. So then Lim asked about which platform am I using right now? Is it the ePortal USM? For Lim, I'm using the elearning.usm portal, the eLearn at USM website. Then Sia asked, the groupings can be changed weekly then according to activity or need? Yes, you can. But actually, you have to delete the old groups and create new groups, so again can get a bit tedious. But and you also need to be aware that if you create an assignment before and you use that groups before, so suddenly they won't have access to the assignment anymore because you've already deleted the groups for the previous assignment. So that's why I don't really recommend you to keep on changing the groups. For example, you allow only the assignments, these groups to access the assignments, and then you delete the groups and then you create another assignment. So then the assignment that has that restriction before suddenly will not be accessible by everybody because you deleted the previous groups. So that's why I don't recommend it. Okay, another one, all the recorded session will be upload. Yes, okay, thanks. Can we allow, from a question from Wu K, can we allow students to submit a video file and document file at the same time? Yes, you can. You just have to pick the right one. For example, here, okay, document files, I just want PDF and docx, and you can also take on video files as well. So you can have a combination of files that they submit. All right, so I've cleared through the list of questions and I can proceed. Another question from Napsia. So there is no archiving then for the groups info? No, once you delete it, then the groups will be lost. Okay, so that's one disadvantage of creating the groups. All right, so I'm gonna close this. I'm going to remove the video file just here, and then save changes. All right. Now notifications here. Notify graders about submission. Here I put it as no because you would get many emails about the submissions if you leave it as yes. So you get like sort of spam because of the many. If you have a lot of students and they're submitting all of them, and then you get email for every submission. So I don't recommend you to put this as yes. You just put it as no. Notify graders about late submission. If you want to know which one of your students submitted late, then you can put yes, because they would eLearn would email you once if the student submitted late. If you want to know the late submissions, then you can put it as yes. But actually, you can see it in the submissions page later. You will see who submitted late. So here also, you can put yes if you want to know, but I will not put it as yes because I can see this later who submitted late. And here, notify students for when you've completed marking. So this one I set as no because you don't want the students to know directly after you finish grading. So if you put it as yes and you forgot to untick this notify students, what happens is that after you give them a grade, then the students are straight away going to get an email or get a notification saying that you finished grading and they can see their score. So sometimes I know we want to grade everybody, all students, and then we release the marks. So if you put yes, then they would each student would know one by one. So I suggest you to put it as at no for now. Now grade. So it could be point, maximum grade 100. And this is how we access the different types of advanced grading for assignment. So if you put simple direct grading, then the item that you're going to see when you grade is just a text box saying whether it's, you just put a number inside the text box. This is simple direct grading. But now we want to create a marking guide. I think I'll start with marking guide first, and also a rubric later. So then you should categorize this assessment. I've already created it to be assignment or test. So maybe some of you who did not follow the previous training on the quiz, they might not have this option. So if you want to create this assignment and test option, you should go to the Gradebook. That's in the previous video if you want to see how I do that. So for me, we already created this assignment category, so I just click on the assignment. Grade to pass, I just leave it as empty. Blind marking, if you do not want to know which students you are grading, so you can put it as yes. And what happens is that you don't get see the names of the students, but you get to see the numbers for the students, so it's anonymous. Now, use workflow if you want to release all the grades at the same time, because there are a few stages of the assignments that you can go through before giving the marks. Now, I did mention just now, even if you did not notify the students could actually see the grades in their gradebook. It's just that they're not being notified of the grade. So you could still put it as no, they're not notified, but if they go into the gradebook, they could see. So if you want to avoid them to see the grade straight away after you grade, then you should put it as use marking flow as yes, because they don't release to the students until you say it's ready for release. And then use marking allocation. This is if you have multiple lecturers that teach in a single course and you want to assign certain lecturers to different students. So you can click on yes. I'm just choose all yes to show you what I mean later when we actually grade. So common module settings, you don't have to see anything, nothing interesting there. Restrict access. Okay, so this is one thing. This is one option you can use if you want to restrict the access of an assignment or a resource based on certain criteria. So let's say you only want this assignment to be available to certain groups. So you can click on this add restriction, and you can, there's all these other things, but I would mention group. So if you want to, the only group that can actually see this assignment is, like, say if I put group A and I add this restriction, okay, means that only group A will be able to see this assignment. And then you can keep on adding other restriction as well. I'm going to remove this because right now this assignment is open for everybody. And activity completion, I recommend you to use show activity as complete when conditions are met. I would just use the default. They would complete this assessment if they submit the activity. And we're done for the settings of the course. Save and return to course. Okay. Click on that. And then the assignment is there already, but notice that we didn't create the rubric yet. Okay. So to create the rubric, you have to go back into the assignment. And okay, you have the information there. Everything is as we want it, but there's no rubric here. you should go to this gear button here. Let me just move this. Oops. Gear button there, and then you scroll down and you see this option, Advanced Grading Define Marking Guide. So you click on Advanced Grading. Now this is where you set the your marking guide or rubric. Now let me go back to my presentation. To tell you about the difference between marking guide and rubric. Now, marking guide is a way for you to grade the students, giving marks based from a range of marks based on loose criteria. So this is less definite. If you use a marking guide, it's more of like you give a general criteria, like say accuracy, and you give a mark for it, like say 10 is the maximum mark. So for accuracy, you can give 5 or 6 or 7 for that criteria. So that's a marking guide. I think we're probably used to that because I think you usually have an assignment and you grade them and you have some criteria and you just give them, like say, I'm going to give this an 8 for accuracy. I'm going to give a 7 for cohesiveness, for example, for those criteria. But if it's a rubric, then you have to give definite marks. There's no range for that criteria. So it's either yes, no, 5 or 1, 0 or 10. It cannot be a range within that rubric. So we're going to start off with the marking guide first. Now, before I start, maybe anybody want to ask any questions, or I need to check my connection and also my audio and video feed. Any questions? Because it's very quiet. Any questions, or maybe am I clear enough, or am I? Yeah.
There are questions in the chat, Dr. Yusri.
All right. Let me see. Okay. Okay, what do you mean by marking workflow? I think it's best if I show you later rather than to explain. I've already said it as yes just now, so you can see later. Are we allowed to choose marking guide or rubric? Yes, you can use either one. It's up to you. For this example, I'm going to use a marking guide. I'm going to create a marking guide, and then I'm going to create a rubric. So you can use either one. It's really up to your preference and also the requirements of your course. Okay. So let's move on and let us create that marking guide. So to create the marking guide, you can actually change the way that you grade here. You don't have to commit to marking guide or rubric once you set it in the beginning. So, but right now we're just going to use marking guide. Okay, another question from Benny. Oh, it says, I am made to understand that the university requires us to come up with rubric. I'm not sure about requirement. I think it's still just a guideline, but you can correct me if I'm wrong for that one. It's just that it's preferable to use rubric because it's very objective. It's more objective than a marking guide or a very loose criteria, and then you give a mark in between for any without any reason why you give those marks. So that's why it's recommended to use a rubric instead of a marking guide. But I'm not sure whether it's a rule. How do I get the advanced grading option? I must have missed it. All right, let me go back to the main page of the assignment. So this is the main page. If you click on the assignment, then you come to this page, and to get to the advanced grading, you should click on this gear button, and then you scroll down, and you see the advanced grading option there. And this is how you get to it. So I'm going to click on this now to get to the advanced grading page. Okay. Oh, now let's create the marking guide. So to create the marking guide, you should you click on this, and if you've created some other rubrics, you can actually import those rubrics in the current active eLearn portal to be added to this. But right now, we assume that there's no rubric at all, or there's no marking guide. So there's only option is this one. So click on Define New Grading. Let me go back if I'm too quick. Click on this icon here. Click on that, and you get into this page. So give it a name. Say Marking Guide for Term Paper. I also like to give the code so that I know which marking guide am I using later if I want to search for it. And this is optional. You don't have to add it in the description if you don't want to. Then here is where you type in the criterion. So to edit this, you just click on that, and then this text box will appear. So I already have a marking guide. I'm going to show it to you right now. Where is that? Sample submission, not this one. Assignment files. Oh yeah, this one. Now, can you see my rubric/marking guide? Can you see it? Let's see. All right, thank you. Some people say yes. So this is the rubric. Rubric, there are these criterias, and then there's also the criteria. These are the details for the criteria. Well, this one is the criteria. Now, if you create marking guides, the criteria for the marking guide is just this part here. For example, the integration of knowledge, and there's this novice, apprentice, proficient, expert level. So for rubric, you need to add all of this. But if you want to, if it's just a marking guide, then you can just use this as the criterion. So I'm going to copy this, integration of knowledge. That's my first criteria. And I'm going to paste it here. Description for student, if you like to explain what you mean by integration of knowledge for this marking guide. So I'm going to go back. I have a description for that, the level of integration of concept. And I paste it in here. And if you want to have description for markers too, but yeah, there's a lot of information here. I'm just going to ignore this. It's optional. And the maximum score here is 20 because I set it as 20%. Okay. Now I add my next criterion. So my next criterion is, I don't think I would have time to go through all, so I'm just going to choose up to 3. So I'm going to copy this, topic focus, put it here. Description for students, it's this one. Paste it here. And the maximum score is 20. And the last criterion. I have actually 7 criterion, but I don't think we have the time to go through all of that. But I guess you get the idea. By the way, this is involved, this marking guide and also the rubric here is involved because this is an actual rubric that I use. So depth of discussion, that's the third criterion. Copy, paste. Description for students, I put in the depth of discussion. Copy this. And I paste it there. And then the maximum score is 30. Now we're done with our marking guide. And we have, we can add more criterions if you want to. So you could actually choose to show the guide definition to students if you want to, or not. You can show marks per criterion if you want to. And then if you confirm that the marking guide is correct, you just click on Save Marking Guide and make it ready. So I'm going to click on that. And we're done with the marking guide. Now it says here, warning, your marking guide has a maximum grade of 70 points, but the maximum grade set for this activity is 100. So it just actually reminds you that if it's like 100 to 100, it will not give you this warning. But if it's 70, because I give here 20, 20 plus 30 is 70, it gives me a reminder saying that this is actually 70 points and the maximum is 100. So what it does is that automatically the system would scale it up to 100. So you don't have to worry of it being 70. It will just go to 100, even though if you add in not 100 value for this. Intermediate scores will be converted respectively and rounded to the nearest available grade. So this is basically scaling from 70 to 100. If they get 70 points, means they get 100 points. I'm going to move this. Oops, that pops up again. Okay, let's see how it works. So I'm going to go back. Term paper assignment. And let's see what the student sees. So I'm going to switch. Again, I went back to the main page of my assignment. Okay, I click on this one to go back to the main page. And then I want to see what the student sees. So I change my role to student. So I switch role to student. And this is what they see when they come in. It says here, I'm getting this. It says here it's a group-based assignment, so that's why it gives this reminder. It says that it's not marked, and then this is how it's being graded: integration of knowledge, topic focus, maximum score, depth of discussion. So when the student comes in, they know how they're being graded for this assignment if you use a marking guide. All right. And then, yeah. Okay, let's see what you see as a lecturer. So I'm going to return to my normal role. Again, I go to my name, I scroll down, I click on return to my normal role, because what we see as a lecturer is different than what the student sees. So this is what you see, and if you want to grade, assume that the students have submitted and you want to grade the student, so you can just click on grade or view all submission. I'm just going to click on grade to go to a student. And yeah, this is what you see. So if the student submitted a PDF, then you will see the PDF here. Now that's why for me, I prefer to use PDF instead of Word, because if it's Word, then I get to, the formatting will be off once you change, when you go into here. So to be safe, for you to grade directly inside here, you should ask the students to submit a PDF. And some of you might be confused with, when you come in, okay, I only see one page. What happened to the other page? Assuming that the students have already submitted. So you can go to the other page by clicking on this one. Because the student didn't submit anything, so the default is just page 1 of 1. So if you click on this, then if there are many pages, there'll be page 1 of 10, page 2 of 10, 3 of 10, and so on. So you can go to the page. And you have all these other, you have all this annotation toolbox for you to annotate onto the PDF. Okay, one thing to note also is that since we put blind marking, so we don't know the student, so maybe we can reduce bias because we don't know the student by using this blind marking. And you would see the, I'm gonna move this. You would see the marking guide here. Now, if it's too small on this side here, you can just click on this button here to increase the size of it, so you can work with it without it being on the side. Or you could go down here and click one of these 3 buttons. So if you click on this, then the maximum, the marking guide will occupy the entire screen. If you click in the middle, it will be somewhere in between. And if you click on this one, then it will be just the PDF. So I'm going to click on this, and then we see the marking guide. And you can add in your comments here. And you can give the grade, like say 7 out of 20. And topic focus, another comment. And then a grade of 10, or maybe 20. I just want to be generous. Depth, very, very in-depth. And then give a mark of 30. And then a question was asked just now about marking workflow. So here is the stages that you set. If you set the marking workflow, even though if you graded this one, you could still classify this as not being marked, so that you could still change it. Or you could go to in marking, means that you're marking right now. Or if you want to say that it's marking completed, you can put marking completed like this, and in review, and ready for release, and in the end released. So I know there's a lot of steps here, but the ones that are most important will be whether you are marking it or whether it's released. Now, this marking workflow allows you to release all of the grades at once to the students if you set it as released. And you can just click Save Changes. By the way, the notify students here, if you put it as yes just now, by default, then this will be tick. So since we set it as no, so it's off by default. Right, so that's about the marking guide. Any questions? I'm going to read through the question. So there's one question by City. The advanced grading form is not ready at the moment. What that means? You would have to save the marking guide just now. At the bottom, after you create the marking guide, you have to click save and make it ready. Then only it's ready. Okay, another question from another participant, CTN. She asked, how do you set the rubric for grading 20 or 30%? Actually, we set it. I'm going to go through the rubric later. This is just the marking guide, but you set the actual marks. You don't actually set the percentage. So you can put it at 20, and then if it doesn't add up to 100, Moodle would scale it up to 100. And another question from Napsia, would PDF file help in the situation where we want to help edit the student's assignment? Can we show where they go wrong? You cannot edit the file straight away because it's uneditable if it's a PDF form, but you can annotate on the PDF. So it's actually easier to make comments on the PDF than making comments on the Word file, because if it's a Word file, I think sometimes it fails to show in this window here. So from my experience, some Word files show, while some do not show it, and then just have a blank screen, and we get confused on what happened to the submission. So if it's a PDF, it always shows. If it's Word, then sometimes it shows, sometimes it doesn't. So it's a bit buggy. All right. A question from Jacqueline. Does eLearn release marks after we complete grading all the assignments, or does it go one by one? Now, if you put it as without the marking workflow, then it will release to the students one by one if the gradebook is viewable to them. But if you use the marking workflow, then it's going to be released at the same time. Okay. So a question from Lee. How about if we have two types of rubric to evaluate two different POs, do we have to combine them as one rubric? In this case, if you want to achieve two different rubrics, two different POs, like the idea is you have one rubric for one assignment or for one activity. You cannot have, unless you want to have the students submit to two different assignments where you have two different rubrics for the same assignment, then that's doable, but it gets tedious, right? Because you have to have two assignments and grade it separately. You could do that, or you could put it all into one rubric and then you separate it later. Okay, Benny commented, Word file can be shown in feedback window. I'm not sure, maybe this is a comment from Benny, not a question. Is that a question, Benny? I'm not sure. Another comment or question, can we download the student's file? Yes, you can download the student file. Let me show you how to do that. We go back to the assignment. I'm going to leave page. All right, so this is the main page. Again, if you want to go to the main page of assignment, you click on this link at the top, and you go back to the main page of the assignment, and you scroll down and you can click on view all submissions. Once you click on all submissions, then you see if they've uploaded a file, you would see the file somewhere here, if I'm not mistaken. You can download the file straight away from here if you want. To the bottom there. And if you want to download all, if I'm not mistaken, I press back and go back to the main page. I think there is this download all button here. Sorry about that. You click on this, and yes, the gear button here, you scroll down and you see view all submissions or download all submissions. So you click on that and you get to download all of the submissions. And now it's already 3:30. Oh, how time flies. So this is how you do it. So I'm going to continue. I know there's a few other questions. So download all submissions here. And if you want to actually see the students, the names of the students, you can still backtrack on your decision to make it blind, to make it, double blind, or is it single blind? Single blind, you just click on reveal student identities and you get to see the names. So now let's go back to the main thing. The main thing is actually to come up with the rubric, right? So what we did just now was the marking guide. So I go back to advanced grading. Okay, click on the gear and then go to advanced grading. And then I just delete this currently defined form because I want to create the rubric. So click on delete. It says here that I'm deleting all this. Okay, continue. And then we start off with no rubric or marking guide. So choose rubric for now. And it reloads, and then you click on define new grading form from scratch. and then I type in my rubric IEA 501 rubric for term paper. Scroll down, and then this is where we add in the criteria. So I'm going to go through 3 criteria like before. I cannot go through all 7, so that you get what I mean about creating this rubric. So I go back to my rubric, and I go to my first criteria. I copy the criteria, integration of knowledge, copy this, and then paste. Okay, integration of knowledge, and then I cut and paste in the criteria, the detailed criteria for this criterion. So for novice here, I put in like so, paste, and then the next level is this, copy, and then paste, and then the third level, copy, and then paste. And then we have 4 levels, but here by default it's at 3, so we can add another level by clicking on add level. And then we take the final level, copy, and then paste. Okay, notice that I want to allocate 20 marks for integration of knowledge. So the highest panel here should be 20 marks or 20 points. Press enter. Wait, cancel. Yeah, you don't have to press enter. You just have to type it in, and then it will it would register that value. And then we have to scale the values. Like say, if you put 20 points for the best criterion, then you would have to separate it among these 3 other criteria. So I put here 13.33 marks. I'm just going to do this first, and I'm going to explain why is it 13.33. Then the next one is 6.67. Paste. Okay. So we're done with 1. And I think I just have time to do 1. The rest, I think it follows the same style or idea. Okay. This is the actual rubric, so it's a bit long for me to copy and paste in front of you. So I think 1 should be enough to give you the idea on how to create the rubric. So now about the points. So if you say that you want 20 marks for integration of knowledge, you have to ensure that the leftmost or the lowest criterion is 0. It cannot be a value because the rubric starts off with 0 and ends to the maximum mark. So you might think if I put 20 here, it's 20, 15, 10, and then 5. But eLearn doesn't accept 5 as a starting value. It accepts only 0. So if you do want a 0, you do want to give some marks for this criteria, then you need to add another level like this, and where this one is 20, 15, 10, 5, and 0. It has to start off with 0. Now this one is I learned through experience. When I started using rubric, I did not put a 0 at this, and I give a 5 mark. So what happens is that eLearn actually gave a warning saying that you should start at 0, but I did not. I forgot about. I did not read that warning, I missed that warning, and what happened is that it actually eLearn or Moodle would scale it to 0 to 20. So whatever that I put here will become 0, even though if I did put it as 5. So that's one thing that you should think about when you write this rubric. So make sure it ends at 0, and you add the level. If you don't want to give this a 0 for this point here, you should add a level where it is a 0 at the end. Okay. So I noticed a few comments. Let's see. Let's see what it says here. There's a lot of saya terlepas bahagian level, apakah maksudnya? Bahagian level, I'm not sure. I see a picture. Maybe I can speak to you later personally about this. And then Nur Saada asked, can we hide the grade from students? Yes, we can hide the gradebook. It's in the main settings of eLearn. Maybe I can show it to you later. How do we hide the grade? Basically, if you want to hide the grade from the students, then you should hide the gradebook. Okay, I mean the entire gradebook. from Noor F, I can't see your screen. Can I confirm with everybody else whether you can see my screen or not? Because Noor F is not.
Yeah, we can see yours
Yes,
clearly.
can.
Oh, okay. So Noor F, don't worry if you. Yes. Sorry.
Maybe the internet, I think.
Okay. Noor F, don't worry. If you want to, I think this session is recorded, so in that recorded session, you should be able to see the screen, so that you can follow the discussion. There's one from a participant got disconnected, so I think CDE can help with getting her back connected. Noor R. The rest, no. Okay, from Louis, from Lee, Dr. Lee, how if we have a range of marks in one level? You cannot. If it's a rubric, you cannot have a range of marks. It has to be a definite value. So that's the key difference between marking guide and rubric. If you want it to be a range, then you have to use the marking guide. Okay. Also a question from Maziani, how about having a range that can only be done for marking guides? I covered marking guides in the previous exercise. I think it can't be changed for rubric, yeah, correct. And there's a few more questions here. How if within a level there are differences point range within a level? Again, if you want to with range, you can only use marking guide, you cannot use rubric. But if you want to have a detailed for each criteria, then you should create another criteria, add another criterion for that detailed one. So you cannot create within each panel here. So can we give, from Jacqueline, she asked, can we give marks between 6.67 and 13.3? No, we cannot. If you want to give a mark, some other marks in a range between 0 to 10 or 0 to 20, then you would have to use the marking guide instead of a rubric. So again, a rubric is definite. So it has to be that criteria or no criteria. Either yes or no, it's really black and white. So that's how it maintains the objectivity of the marking instead of having a range. So that's two key differences. So if you want to use range, again, use a marking guide. You can actually write the marking guide as if it's a rubric too if you want to, you insist on using the range. Or you need to use the range for your assessment. All right, so that's this part here. It's done. I'm going to save this. Okay, there's other things here that I want to point out. There's this one that I mentioned, calculate grade based on the rubric having a minimum score of 0. You can actually untick this, but again, I said that just to be safe, you should have another level to have that 0 value if you want. Allow users to preview the rubric. I recommend you to take this as yes. We want the students to know how they are being graded, so they can work to get to that point. So that's the main idea. That's one reason why we have a rubric, to tell them our standard. The third one is to display rubric description during evaluation. Yes, I want to display it. The fourth criteria, the fourth setting here is display rubric description to those being graded. Yes, the students should see it. Display points. Now this one is it's something that you can think about, because if from my experience, I've handled running a course where we have multiple lecturers, and those lecturers, they have let's see, how do I put it? They have an idea of what the student should get. They want to give a certain grade, but the rubric is very very specific. So they don't want to give either 20, or they don't want, if, like, say for example, if you have 20 marks here and 13.33, say there's a very wide margin, and they don't want them. They want to give somewhere closer to 20, but not down up to 13.33. So and then you know that rubric is actually very definite, so you cannot have a range for this one. So if you want to reduce that bias or that feeling of having it somewhere in between, so it's best for you not to put the marks there, so that they are less. They will less struggle. They will not struggle on which one to choose between this and the other one. That's psychology. That's just coming from my experience. But if they don't mind and they know the marks that they should allocate for each one of that, then you can show the marks to the grader, to the lecturer. allow graders to add text remarks for each criterion. Yes, yeah. So if you see the rubric and when you grade, then there will be one text box at the right here where they can add in the comments and show remarks to those being graded. Yes. So usually I would just put it all as I tick all of this. Maybe I would untick display points if I want to reduce that bias, the grader's bias during the grading. But one thing here that you need to be aware of, if you do not put the grades, don't put the values in the text box. So some lecturers, if you are coordinating a class where you have some lecturers grading, some lecturers, they will not know whether this one is actually the highest mark or this one is the lowest mark, right? So you would have to tell them which one is the highest and which one is the lowest. And then you have to use a format that they are comfortable with. For example, in your school, you use a lot where the lowest marks is on the left and the highest marks on the right. So they would think that this is the lowest and this is the highest. So you should arrange it like that. You don't arrange it the other way around, because if you arrange it the other way around, then they might mistake that actually this one is the lowest and this one is the highest, and then give a 0 mark. So that's one thing that you should think about when you do this, because there could be misunderstanding, and I come across this too, especially when we give a rubric, a hard copy rubric, where the left is the most, the highest, and the right is the lowest, and then they think it's the other way around. So one tip for you. So save rubric and make it ready. And it's done, this rubric here. And if you go back to the main page of the assignment, then, oops, what happened? Wait, let me see. Let me oh, I think I did not save it. Advanced grading. Did I save it? Let me try it again. Ready for use. And display points. I'm just going to save this. And I'm going to go back. Yeah, I think there's some technical issue here. I think maybe because I created the marking guide before, so it doesn't show up now. But similar to the marking guide, once you finish the rubric, then you should see the rubric somewhere below here after these details here. So I think it's a technical issue here that causes not to show up. Maybe it will show up after I refresh. So I'm not going to dwell on this for now. But if you create the rubric and you've already saved it, by right, it should show up in the bottom here. Okay. So that's the rubric part. And one other point about this, see if I remember that. Backup, filters, advanced, view gradebook, view all submissions. I think that's it for the rubric. Let me refer to my PowerPoint to see if I leave out anything. Where's my? Yes, okay. So that's covered the marking guide and the rubric, and I'll answer a few questions now before I go to show one example of a rubric for calculation-based questions. Okay, here a question from Vina. She asked, is there a way to create different groups with different members within the same course, and we can allocate which group you want for which assignment, but not sure how to share? Like I mentioned, it gets very messy if you create many groups, because Moodle is not able to know which group do you mean when you restrict that assignment for a certain group. So I tried it before, but it usually be very messy. I resorted in deleting the old groups. So not that I know of that we can do this. That is easy. So from Lim, oh, okay, it's a comment from Nurida. She asked, what about imported rubrics? Does it have to be in a certain format or exact format? Now for import, oh yes, now I remember what I was about to say. Okay, advanced grading. There is no button here to import the rubric, but if you already created the rubric, you can actually see if you edit the current rubric here. No, I've already created the rubric. I'm going to delete this rubric now, and then I'm going to show you what I mean. So I'm going to delete this, delete the old rubric, start fresh. And you come up with this two option again. You can either define new one like what I did just now, or you can create a new grading form from a template. Now, if you click on that, then if you've created other rubrics in your account, you can just type in, for example, maybe I already have one for term paper, and I search. Oh, I don't have one. Maybe for paper, I'm not sure whether I do have one. How about MacCab? Oh, not MacCab, MacCab. Yeah, I think I don't have any in my account. Include my own forms. Let's see. Ah, yes, I do. Yeah, so we have to click on this, include my own forms, and I already have another active rubric that I use for a different assignment from a different course. So if you want to import those rubric from those different courses, you should go back. We should go to the screen. So let me repeat that. You go to advanced grading again. You go to create new grading from a template. This is the one that you've already created. Click on that, and then tick on this, and then type in the whatever name that you remember that you use for your rubric. You click on search, and you have, this is one of them, and then you can click on use this form as a template to import it. So that way you don't have to create another rubric for other assignments, because every assignment that you create, you have to create a rubric for that assignment. So it gets very tedious because of that. If you have many assignments, then you use the same rubric, then you have to create the rubric again and again for all those assignments. So one way for you to make it faster is actually to use this way. You search for it, and then you just scroll down, and then you click on use this form as a template. So that's a quicker way. So this is one way for you to import the rubric, but not from a, I think what you mean, one of the questions is that you import it from Word file, but I don't, haven't come across that way of importing rubrics using a Word file. Okay, so a question from CTN, it says, is it a must for the rubric to follow LOPO? Yes, it is, because that's your contract to the students, right? So you have to follow. So my idea is actually, for everyone as criteria, which PO or LO are you trying to assess the students? So like say, for example, this one, assess the second CLO. So I don't actually put it here. If you put it here too, you can. It's for your own reference, but for the students, it won't really mean much to them. But if you want to know which one of these are for which CLO, and then for one rubric, you can actually put multiple. Maybe for this one rubric, you have, this is for CLO1, this is for CLO2, this is for CLO1 again. So if you do put it there, it's just for your reference and not for the students. Okay. Now, let me show you that one assignment. I'm not going to create it, but I'll show you, and I'll give you an idea on how to create a rubric for an equation-based or a working-based assignment. Like there was a question where, how do you grade the students if they submit a working, their mathematics, the workings for the problem, and then we need to grade it. So let me show you that one. Oh, not this one. Sorry, not this one. IK 213. Okay, this is the assignment. I'm going to scroll down at the bottom there. Okay, this is the assignment. Maybe for those of you who are in the chemical engineering field, then you know what this is about. This is an assignment to solve a problem using the McCap-Thiel method. And what the student does is that I have a question here, and the student would write it on a graph paper, on a piece of paper, the workings, and then they upload the file here, and then I grade it. So I use this. Okay, I'll show you the assignment template. Not this one. I'll show you the sample paper. This is from the student. Okay, this is actual from an actual student last semester. She submitted this assignment, and she gave the workings, and then also the graph paper at the end. So I'm supposed to grade this, and I use a rubric to grade this. You can see this, right? Yeah? Can you see my screen?
Yes,
I always need to check. Okay. So I think this is something that you guys would you will get from your students. They will upload it something like this if you want them to handwrite their their assignment to be handwritten. And then I grade the student using this rubric. So let's say if I grade this, I click on grade, Now for this one, they didn't submit yet because this is at the end of this semester. The one that I showed you just now is from the previous semester. So that rubric looks something like this. You notice that it doesn't have to have 4 levels or 3 levels. Oops. Like what I did for the term paper. It's more objective this way, where the rubric can either be yes or no. For example, this is really objective. It says the XY curve is drawn on a graph paper. Is the XY curve drawn on the graph paper? Yes or no? If they did draw it, yes. Is the XY curve drawn correctly? Yes or no? If they did draw it correctly, I put yes. Are the X and Y axis labeled? If yes, no. So you see, it's very objective. So you can actually, it doesn't have to be 4 or 5 levels for each of the criteria. It could be a criteria that assess the presence of something in the assignment. For example, is XF are labeled correctly? Is it labeled or not labeled, right? So if it's labeled and it's the number is provided is accurate, yes. If it's not labeled, you get no. If they did label it but then it's not correct, they get partially correct. But rubrics can also be this sort of yes/no question instead of all the levels, and this is even more objective. So I can imagine if you want to grade the workings of a problem, you could actually set a rubric like this, and you can actually grade the rubrics you can grade the assignment very objectively using this. And at the end of the assessment, the students will actually come across the rubric here, and then they see where they get it wrong. For example, I set this one as yes, I put it as no. So at the end, the students actually see, oh, they did not draw the XY curve correctly. That's why they got this no. And then they could get back to me and ask why did I think that it's not correct? I can explain them. So this is it's actually giving very good feedback to the students. So there's 2 samples of rubric that you can strategy for creating the rubric for your students. All right, so that's the end for rubric, and I'm going to go to analytics. I think I may have at most 15 minutes, but let me take a look at the questions in the chat. It says, boleh tunjukkan bagaimana jumlah markah dihitung? Okay, so here, when I created this rubric here, for example, I put here 1, 2, maximum 1, 2, 1. If you add them up, okay, 1, 3, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. So this is 20 marks. If they get a 0, of course, they get minus 2 marks from that 20 mark. And then if it's 100%, I mean, it can be scaled to 100%. So how it calculates is just basically, okay, 1, 0, and then I click on this. Oh, this is no, this is yes, partially correct, yes, yes. So you will just add them all up and then scale it up to 100. Okay. So Vina asked, I didn't ask about creating different groups. Oh, you know how to do it. Oh, okay. All right, maybe you can share. I don't know how to do it, so maybe I can learn from you on how to create those groups. Okay, thank you for that comment, Vina. Next is from Gun. It's complicated. Okay. I suggest, yeah, it does get a bit complicated because there are all these links for you to choose from. But to get over that, you just do it. You can just create a simple rubric first, and then once you get used to it, it becomes easy. So don't worry. Just the key thing is for you to start doing it. Who else? Yes. Now, okay. So that's it for the rubric. I'm going to go to analytics now. So I'll go to the main page. I think I want to show a course that has some results because it's more meaningful if you see the results. Let's see if there's any course here that with results. Okay, I'm going to use this course, although this is not my course, but I just show it to you. This is a current semester course. Oh, yeah. I forgot about this. There's this thing I recommend for you to do. So I'll go back to the empty course, 501. Where's that? Okay, and then we'll go to the analytics. So for this one, you notice that it's very empty. Okay, we already have units and dimensions, temperature, pressure. We have these 2 assignments there. But there's one thing that you might have overlooked. One is, oh, let me minimize this. Okay, that's how you do it. So one of them are blocks. So you notice that there's no blocks here. It's just the page here, but there are a few blocks that I recommend you to add into your e-learning portal. So to do that, you just think, yeah, you click on these three horizontal lines, and then you scroll down until the bottom where you see the add a block. Click on that, and you have all these blocks there. Now, the ones I recommend for you to add, don't put all of them, just put some of them. And I think they're quite useful, are these ones. Let me show it to you. Yes, here. I recommend the following blocks: latest announcements. So, okay, here, you find latest announcements, like here. You click on that, and then you have the latest announcements block. Now, you add another block. Scroll down. Again, you click on this horizontal line, three horizontal lines, and then you scroll down. You click on add a block. The next one I recommend is upcoming events. So this is alphabetically arranged. You scroll down to the bottom. You click on upcoming events, and you have the upcoming events there. The next one is online users. Okay, so we add this. Scroll down, add a block. Where's online users here? Okay, there. And then the last one is analytics block. So again, click on that, click on add a block, and I think it's this one, yes, analytics graph. So these are the 4 blocks I recommend. Now, latest announcements this is important. If you create an announcement for the students that goes to their email, it will show up here. So anything about like there's going to be a quiz, there's going to be a new lesson coming up, there's going to be a meeting and so on. So you should put it here so that they can see and the students can see and they get an email about it. Upcoming events, if you have a test or an assignment due date, it will show up here, upcoming events. Right now, we did not set anything. It was far away in the future. So it's not here. I think this is a 3 months, 1 month or 2 months window for the upcoming events. So this one is set in, I think, end of May. So it doesn't show up here. But if it's somewhere nearer, then you can see the upcoming events here. Okay, online users here I recommend because now everybody's at home and they're not meeting each other. So it's sometimes nice to know who is online and watching the same screen. Like I say, for me, nobody is taking this course, so of course it's just me. So if I log in, I see myself, and then if I see another student there, I can actually chat with them, and they can see other people in the rooms in the portal as well, and they have a sense of community or some interaction between people, and see people are there in the class. Now, the focus is actually this one, this analytics graph, right? So for this one, don't worry, it's not really about how to set it. It's just a matter of making you aware of the things that's available inside this analytics graph. Now, for this one, I don't think if I were to show you, it's going to be empty because this is an old course. So I'm going to go to a different course to show you the results, the real results. So for me, I'm going to go to a current course, IUK 208. Okay, and I already have all these things there. And I see my analytics graph. So the grades chart, you click on that, you open another window, and you get to see, you'll be presented with this page, and you get to see how the students, what's the distribution of marks for each one of these assessments that you create. For example, you want to see IUK 208, test 1, the distribution of grades. So you click on this, add assessment to chart, then you see the distribution. So it's a box plot. It ranges from 100 to 25, where the median is somewhere closest to 75. So maybe the average is about 60 or so. Then let's look at another one. I'm not sure which one is correct. This is not my course, by the way. Okay, so this is another quiz. So for this quiz, the student did not perform as well as the first one, where the average is somewhere lower to the bottom. And there are also some students who get 0 for this one. So this is just to look at the distribution of marks for the assessment, or it could be any assignment. It doesn't have to be test or quiz, but for any assignment that has marks, you can see the distribution there to see how well they do in a certain topic. So this is for the grades chart. Now let's see if there's any questions in the chat room. Okay. Okay, do we just click the box? Yes. I mean, if you want to grade using the rubric, you just click on it. So that's why it's actually I recommend using this is a question from Dr. Gunn, I assume. She asked, She asked, sorry, she asked whether you can just click on the box to grade. Yes, it makes the grading process a lot easier. You just, when you look through the assignment, then you just click based on the criteria that you set. So and then it will auto-calculate the grade for you. So it's a lot easier for you to grade the assignment using the rubric. And then a question from Nick N. Can I conduct another course about rubric marking solely? I don't want to say that I'm an expert in rubric making. I might have more experience using eLearn, but not on the exact theory behind rubric and so on. So I'm not so sure about that. Maybe there are other experts that are better suited to talk about rubric design. What I do is just based on what I think what's logical to me. So you can start off with that too, but I'm sure there are other theories. Educational experts, they have theories on how to create the rubric, but I'm not that expert. Sorry. So maybe CDE can come up with that training. From Yanni, Dr. Yusri, give marks using rubric, you just click on that particular column, no need to key in points. Yes, you just need to click on the boxes. And from Jacqueline, she asked, after adding items into each of these blocks, can we delete all the items as we add new items into this box? Yes, you can. You can delete the criterion. All right. A question from Benny. For objective questions like quiz, can we create rubric? No, if it's a quiz, I haven't tried that personally myself. If it's a numerical question or a multiple choice question, obviously you cannot use the rubric to grade those because that's like yes, no, 10 marks or 0 marks and so on. But there is a essay question too inside the quiz. There's an essay type of question, but I don't think I come across a way for you to add a rubric to that essay question. So if you want to give a rubric, then I think it's tied just to the assignment, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. So it's not in the quiz. Yeah, so rubric is for assignment, not essay, but assignment activity. You can call it essay, you can call it assignment. In the end, it's the same thing. Okay, from Lim, just now I mentioned how to create a gradebook. We have to watch the recording on how to create quiz. Yes. Yes, it's in that. It's at somewhere at the end of that video. Okay, so let me move forward. I still have a few more analytics to talk about. So this is about the grade report. Now, content accesses. Content accesses is something you can use to monitor whether the students actually access those lessons that you painstakingly create. So let's say I want to see whether they looked at a certain file or a certain page. I just click on that. Okay, by the way, how do I get to this? Let me repeat. In the analytics graph, you click on content accesses and a pop-up window would open and you'll see this. So under resources, I want to see whether they access the file or page. I tick these two and then I click on build graph. Now this might take a bit of time depending on how many students are enrolled in your course. So that's why it takes a bit of time to load. Yeah, so this is a bit problematic because of the connection, I think. Let's get back to this later, and I'll show you what I mean. So we can move on. I think this one will, oh yes, luckily it shows up. So this is what you see, and I use this to assess, to check up on my students. For example, for the material here, PDF lecture notes, three-level factorial design, I see 88 has accessed it, while 5 did not access it. So I'm sure you'll be interested to know who accessed it and who did not access it. So you can just click on, let's say, these 5 students that did not access it. You just click on that, and this one will show up. And it says no access. These are the students. I hope, I'm not sure, this is going to be public, right? So yeah, but I can only work with examples. So these are the students that did not access it, and you can actually send in an email to them. You can say, hello, students. I noticed you did not access. You did not access this material. Please do so. Okay, for example. And then you send email. I'm not going to click on send email, but if you click on send email, it will send to every one of these students this statement here, and you can actually jerk the student back into the course, saying that you're actually monitoring them, and then you know whether they access the content or not. So this is a useful tool to get the students in line with what you want them to study. All right. And but one thing to note is that this sometimes can be sometimes be flagged as spam. So especially if you send to many students at once, so they might go into the spam folder. So that's one disadvantage of this. Okay. And yeah, you can scroll through and see how many of them are there. Okay, one tip from me about making them access your content. Okay, to guarantee, I don't want to say guarantee, but almost guarantee that the students would access your content is to create an assessment based on your content. You say that you can only answer these questions or this quiz or create this assignment if you access the video or you look at the material or you read through the material. That would almost guarantee that the students are going to watch the video, read the material. So sometimes if you give the material but you don't have an accompanying assessment, it doesn't really, the students won't be enticed or will be motivated to go through your material. That's just how it is. Because from my experience, I created a YouTube video for my lecture and I did not create an assessment. I noticed out of like say 20 students, only 3 or 4 students actually watched it while the rest all did not watch it. And the next time around, I created the video and I created a quiz about that video and everybody watched it. It's like a 100% increase or more, 200, 500% increase in the access of the material. So that's one strategy for you to actually increase this. For example, here, nobody's motivated to look at this link here, so they did not go into it. Only 23 students went into it. So these are the things that the numbers that you usually see when you put material there, and then you think that the students will see it, but they will not see it unless you have some assessments tied to it. Another one is like this, right? So we create this video in YouTube, and then 91 did not see it, only 2 saw it, right? Maybe they didn't notice because this is a new one, but this would be more, maybe 5 or 4 more students. But anything, if you want them all to see, then definitely you need to put a quiz or something that relates to this to this material. So that's for content accesses. Then there's also number of active students. I'm going to click on that. Again, let me go back to this one. And under analytics graph, click on number of active students. Okay, this is the window. Now, this is an interesting graph because it shows you when the students actually access your course. For example, here it shows the students like to go into the course around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And there's another peak somewhere at night, but most of them will come in the course around here, around this time. And you click on this, you get to see these students who actually assess at that time. So this can actually be a very good planning tool for you to plan your course when you want to do a certain assessment or give material, because they will be in the portal during that time. So you don't want to put any material during 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, although there are some students actually do come in at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. And aside from the number of active students, there's also this number of student activities here. So it should correlate with the number of active students that come in. But it seems that at night, they are more productive because we have 35 students coming in, but then they access quite a lot more content during this night access of eLearn. So if you use this correctly, then you can actually judge when you should actually give a material to the students, so you have a higher chance of them using that material if you put it at the correct time. Okay, it's a very interesting tool. So next one is on assignment submissions. I think this is just, it tells you, oh yeah, because there's no assignment, so that's why there's no data to generate. So I'm going to close that. Quiz submission. Takes a bit of time. Yes, here it tells you the ratio between how many students submitted, how many did not submit. So if you look at this one submitted on time, this one submitted late, and this one did not submit, and you get the ratio for it. Okay, so nothing, no, and then you can actually click on this to know the student that did not submit the test or the quiz. Okay, close this one, and then hits distribution. And now for hits distribution, let it load up first. Now this one is another tool for you to check the access of the e-learning portal. So here everybody seems to come into the course, so I don't see any problem, because if they haven't come in for some time, then you would, yeah, something like this, you would see this. So if this one shows, means that this student did not access it for the past week, and you can follow up with the student. You can actually click on the student here, and then you see how you can send the student an email. You can see which content did she access. I think this is still loading. Yeah, you can see which are the things that they access. Only access 47% of the assignment, and so on. So you can explore this. Here is a bit slow because of the internet, I think, the connection to the server. So if you want to monitor the students, this one is a good way. Just look out for this one. It tells you whether the student has been active for the past week. And also the student here, and one more student here. This is a big class. This is about 90 plus students. So there's bound to be some students who strayed. Yeah, so this is how we monitor the progress of the student performance and progress online. Now, I think I've forgotten something to mention in the settings here, but I basically covered the things that I want to cover. It's already 4:10. I talk about blocks, also some things about this analytics graph block, and now we are in the questions session. There's one thing actually I want to mention, but it slipped my mind. Maybe as I answer your questions, maybe I'll be able to jog my memory about those points. Okay, so questions. You can actually unmute your mic, and then I can answer it. Yeah, there's one comment from Jacqueline saying that it may be easier for students to access eLearn at night, so that is why there is relatively high frequency. Yeah, could be. Yes, that's one valid. That's one possibility. Any questions? Oh yeah, I got a message from Dr. Dr. Ling, right? Dr. Hui Ling. She asked how come the arrangement is different of the blocks here. Yes, this is actually, you can move the blocks. You see this button here? So you can click and drag, and you can rearrange it. Okay, and maybe she was asking about why is it at the bottom. Now, one thing that you might not notice is that if your screen is wide, something like this, what happens is that it's going to arrange it like this. For example, this is the menu on the left, and then the main panel right in the middle, and then the blocks on the right. But if there's not enough space between these things, right? If your screen is narrow, like on a phone or on an iPad or a tablet, for example, I do it like this. I reduce the size of the width of the window. You notice that the blocks disappear. So what happened to the blocks? The blocks actually went to the bottom. So that's where it went. And if your window is wide, then you would arrange it to the left, to the right. Okay. Now, any other questions? Any questions? Oh, no questions in the chat room. So do you need to ask any more, because I've covered the things that I want to cover for this training session. It's very quiet this time around. Nobody's asking any questions, so I get a bit nervous. Anything? Is anybody there? Let me check.
Yes, we're here.
Okay, good. There's about 200 plus participants, but nobody's saying anything. So
Yes,
It is clear. It's clear. Thank you.
okay, maybe it was clear. That's why nobody has any questions. It's too clear. Let me think. There's actually one part here I want to talk about. The one I forgot. Let me see. In settings here, edit settings. Is it here? No, not this one. Oh yeah, now I remember the Gradebook. there was a question about can we hide the gradebook from the students? Yes, you can. It's in the main settings of the course, and then there's under appearance. You click on the appearance here, and then this drop-down menu will show, and you see this show gradebook to students. And if you say the default is yes, so if you put no, then they don't see the gradebook. That's it. Okay. So for me, I like to show the gradebook to the students so they know how they are performing. But you have your own reasons why you don't want to show the gradebook to the students. But for me, I would show it. I recommend to show the gradebook. Yes, so I think I've answered all questions, and I'll give 5 seconds for anybody to speak up or put it in the chat box. All right, so no questions. So Dr. Azira, I think we can call it a wrap. CDAE, anybody from CDAE? Hello?
Dr. Yusri dengar ke?
Dengar.
Okay. Kita end dekat sini je kot.
Okay. Semua diam.
Terima kasih Dr. Yusri.
Okay. Okay, so I think that's it. If you have any questions, you can actually email me. I think you can find my email on my website, in the NTech website. You can, I think some of you have my number too, right? You can send me a message directly. Yeah, I'm always happy to answer your questions. I'm sure you have your own situation, your own things that you want to do. So those are very niche. Those are very specific to your case. So that one I cannot cover in the training, but I could give you some recommendations one-on-one instead. So I don't mind answering your questions if you have any. Don't be shy. So if nothing, then I think that's it. I think I can let CDAE close then the session. Thank you very much, everyone, and good luck.